Hello, everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of Views on VUE. I am Steve Edwards, the host with the face for radio and the voice for being a mime, but I'm still your host. With me today, I have my lovely, shiny new co-panelist, Mr. Cody Bonteque. How you doing, Cody?
Hey, everyone. I'm, again, very happy to be here. Loving life. Happy Wednesday.
Yeah, it's just that terrible weather in Hawaii. You got to feel the pain for Cody. It's just awful.
Someone's got to do it.
And also with us, we have our returning occasional guest host, panelist, Mr. Eric Handshed. Everybody knows Eric. How you doing, Eric?
Hey. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Always a pleasure to have Eric back. Eric, for those who might be uninitiated, has a long history as a YouTuber, Program with Eric on YouTube, and is also now a DevRel at AWS, Amazon. So we have had a couple of episodes in the past where we've gone into detail about some of the stuff he's worked on. So you can go back and listen to those for more detail. We'll put links in the show notes. But we just like to have Eric on because he knows a lot of stuff and a lot of people. And plus, we had a guest canceled today at the very, very last minute. So we'd like to have Eric on anyway. So don't take it we're only having him because guest canceled. We'll take him any day. For
I'll
sure.
take it.
Happily.
But so we're just sort of winging it today, considering the last minute cancellation. So before we started recording, we were talking about some of our development histories and programming histories and languages we like to work with, other than Vue, Vue being the top of the heap, of course, since this is a Vue podcast. But Cody was telling us about what I already forgot, Elixir and Erlang. And the uses for that, we do allow for other programming languages and realize that Vue isn't the hammer when everything else is a nail. So we'll diversify our topics a little bit today.
Sure. I mean, Vue is definitely the gateway, right? It's what people
there
are
you go. It's a gateway drug. That's right.
Yeah, it's what gets us into that client side goodness. And in fact, you will use Vue. So I've been exploring Elixir in some of my free time to build out real-time distributed systems. So I have a personal project that I built out with Supabase on the back end originally, and it interacts with streamers. And I'm not going to go into too big of details of the app because it's not really there yet. But when I initially launched it with Supabase, I hit I think it's 1,000 concurrent user limit almost immediately, and just like completely broke the app. And I realized like that's Supabase's limit. And when dealing with streamers, you tend to need closer to like 20 to 50,000 concurrent users per streamer in each individual like socket space. And so that either you use like other than Supabase, there's something called, I think it's Pusher, and that costs a lot of money for just like a side project to get it to scale like that. I think you're already enterprise level payment systems, so you're paying hundreds of dollars. So I decided to just build it out on my own. And so for those not familiar with Elixir, it is a functional programming language built off of Erlang. And Erlang is a programming language built to solve, I think, like telephone communications, just like highly scalable distributed systems. So anyways, I'm going on a tangent, but it's been very fun, very different from JavaScript. And hopefully I can release this system sooner rather than later.
So a couple things there. One, let's clarify what Supabase is. If I remember correctly, Supabase is like the open source version of Firebase. Is that correct?
Right. That's correct. Yep.
Okay. So is it like, do they have like a SaaS platform where you can use it from there? Do you have to self-host it or both, or how does that work?
Yeah. So both. So they have like a easy to use online SaaS platform. It's very similar. It creates like a very easy to use like authentication system. You just like npm install Supabase.js, and now magically within your Nuxt or Vue application, you have OAuth, Supabase.auth, and you pass in like Twitch or Google, and it's very easy to integrate with these third-party auth platforms. And then it also has, all of your easy to use, like you can define your database relationships, and it just like magically creates um, a typed API where you can just say like Supabase dot and then whatever your table name is, and then like dot fetch all, something of that nature. Um, and then yes, there is a self-hosted platform, but I actually haven't explored that too deeply. Um, I just kind of hit limits and realized, this probably isn't the solution for me, and kind of moved on. But for like very simple, or not even very simple, I'm sure it could scale in other areas. I just don't think their focus is on real time.
I will say Amplify, the AWS Amplify, the project I work on right now, is compared a lot to Supabase,
Mhm.
and we have like very similar things that we offer too. I just have to give a little plug there because once you mentioned like being able to create like open a library that just in a few lines talk to authentication and use like GraphQL or schemas to connect to your database, that's exactly what AWS Amplify has too.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm a big fan. You can really kind of avoid a lot of the backend engineering for most like CRUD apps that people actually imagine. And you can just use one of these like off the shelf systems with like a UI to just kind of toggle what you need, and you're good to go. So that tends to be where I have been building for the last couple of years. I try to just avoid as much backend engineering as possible. Um, but that's when you do start hitting limitations, is when you have to kind of dig in and build your own solution. At least part of the solution. I have read that one of the solutions is actually just having my own kind of real time server and still utilizing something like Supabase or my own REST API that server communicates with my real time server. But I haven't gotten too deep into that.
Where did you end up hosting the Elixir app?
Oh, it's not even hosted. I'm very much in the hacking phase of just local development. In fact, I'm taking it very slow. I just yesterday went in and like got near 100% code coverage on like kind of the logic that I've built out so far.
Mm.
And then I was just playing around with GitHub Actions to make sure that code is ran every time I push to GitHub. And then there's actually this like package called X coveralls that I can then it generates that code coverage badge and gives you an interface to see all of like the functions that you've tested, um, things of that nature.
I remember playing around with Elixir years ago. We were talking a little bit offline before we started, and I just remember like wrapping my brain around going from TypeScript, like a type language, like JavaScript, and then going to a completely functional language. Like there's just some paradigms where you're like, oh, now I have to like kind of map through this a certain way. It's like you have to kind of think differently when you move over to it. Would you say that's true?
Oh, 100%. It's funny because I've been writing TypeScript for probably 2 or 3 years now, and prior to that, I was a Python dev, and I like genuinely prefer writing TypeScript than Python, even for minor scripts. Like just having the ability to like have the autocomplete and just like those errors that occur, like, hey, like this value doesn't exist, or this is assuming any, like TypeScript is wonderful. And that is a big issue going into Elixir. It's kind of like a black box. There's a layer of like guessing, and yeah.
Did you use, I know when I was doing it, when I was learning it, I think, I can't remember, I was just trying to Google it. There was a command line utility like it was a game almost that helped me like learn it. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, interesting. No,
Oh,
no. I do. There's a CLI tool. I think it's called IEX, and
hmm.
it's really nice to just kind of hack around and recompile certain modules and run functions on the command line.
Now, so there's Elixir too, which I guess if you're in the Ruby world, you can say that's like Ruby. And then there's what I use is Phoenix, and that
Right.
was like the Ruby on Rails equivalent. Is that what you're using?
Yeah. Yep. That's kind of what I'm dipping my toes in now. Is that yeah that kind of helps you create your HTTP endpoints. Yeah, exactly. But something that I haven't quite figured out is like where the real time starts and ends. Um, I don't know if the entire framework is just always real time or if there's uh that's kind of where I'm getting to next. Is basically I've built out like this HTTP like server that I can use. But it doesn't feel like I'm doing anything special. It feels like I just built out my server. And so I feel like I'm missing something. Uh, but yeah, so the way that I learned it is there's a guy, his name's Dave Thomas. He's actually one of the authors.
Oh, Wendy's, right?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is the guy that founded Wendy's? Yeah.
Oh,
it's a different
maybe,
Dave Thomas.
Maybe.
No, it's a different one. He gets that all the time.
Cody's probably too young to remember that.
Yeah, definitely. But no, Dave, he's the one of the co-authors of The Pragmatic Programmer, which is a very famous book. And so this course, it's only $30 and it's like 10 hours of amazing content. Honestly, it's very thorough. So that's kind of been my approach so far. But ultimately, this will all be hooked in. Oh, yeah, there you go. There's his name.
For those of you watching our YouTube channel, I'm holding the Pragmatic Programmer book. Yeah, he also wrote the Elixir book too, right?
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
And I know Dave McCord, he helped create Phoenix, and he has a Phoenix book that I hear is pretty good, at least it was a couple years ago.
Yep.
I think that's his name.
Yeah, did that book rise from the ashes?
Nice.
So, question for you, quick
Chris
question.
McCord, sorry.
You talked about Erlang. Let's say Elixir was a version of Erlang or came from Erlang. What was the relationship there?
It's built on top of Erlang.
Built on top of Erlang. So you know how we have Go, and Go goes by Erlang. So can you call it Erlang just Same type of thing, or
no?
Okay.
You can try.
Just wondering.
You could try. Yeah.
People would say, "What the heck are you talking about?"
So Erlang, as far as like I was googling it just right now, it's like it came out in 1987. It's been around 37 years, and the stable release was the 29th of June, as of this recording, 46 days ago. So it's been around for a long time. So it was ran on old Unix systems.
I was gonna say like a mainframe type system or something like that.
Yeah, and that's probably where the history of the PBX like phone system came into mind. Like they were literally used it for telephone exchanges back in like the late 1980s, and it was grouped by like it has a long history in the telephony switches industry, and then the Elixir kind of was built on top of it, so being like a much more modern take on it. But I think you can still drop down to Erlang if you have to. But I heard it's a very not the easiest language to work with if you're doing like pure Erlang. It's like going back in time. It's almost like you're doing like compiling like an old language that isn't around anymore.
Yeah, it's what they use. WhatsApp is based on that, or is built with it, right?
Yeah, I think most like pretty much all messaging applications, so like Facebook Messenger, Twitch Chat. There's like basically all of these highly scaled real-time systems rely on this language, which kind of blew my mind. I thought that was like nobody hears about it, but you probably use it daily.
Is it like a server based as compared to like say a mainframe system like COBOL or something like that?
Now that we're behind, we're before my days.
Yeah, I'm reading Wikipedia here. That's interesting, huh?
It's like a distributed, fault tolerant, soft real time, highly available, hot swapping type of system. At least Erlang was. It still is.
Yeah, I was thinking about messaging systems. There's RabbitMQ is one I've heard about, and there's another one. and they're both based on Erlang as well. It made sense, if it's designed for real time message passing. So yeah, interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting, and it's there's a lot to learn from it. It's very different from any other programming language I've used before, and so it's kind of it's definitely stretching my brain in terms of like how to how to like archetype my entire project and um, like what's possible within code.
I'm assuming it's a compiled language also, right? As compared to like a scripted runtime language, like say PHP or something.
Yep, yep, exactly. Yeah, you do have to recompile, but the Phoenix Live View, which is kind of like their kind of server side rendered system, does have like what is it like? What is it? Hot module reload, where it just reloads on code change.
Okay, that's nice. So you don't have to change compile
No.
type thing.
No, only when like hacking in the command line will you have to do that.
It has its own package management system too, which is kind of interesting. I think it's called Hex, but you use Mix to use it, right? And so you can, just like NPM, there's a million different packages out there for anything you're trying to do, so you can kind of quickly get up and running.
Yep. It actually
nice.
like surprises me how similar it is to like my code can look very similar to just like writing JavaScript functions. But I don't know if that's just because I'm used to writing functions in JavaScript. Like I that's kind of my thinking is there's probably a more like functional, more Elixir like way of writing this code that I haven't figured out how to utilize yet. But otherwise, it's very similar.
Interesting. So tell me again what this app is that you're building with. You're talking about Twitch streaming and hundreds of people per Twitch streamer.
Sure. Yeah, we could talk about it. So it's called CoStream.app, and so again, there's no real time functionality in it yet. But I enjoy esports. I'm an esports fan. I enjoy League of Legends, World of Warcraft, things like that, and so every week there's like a professional League of Legends match. And what's become popular in that community is there's the official broadcast, which is the League of Legends, on their YouTube channel or their Twitch channel. But people then mute the broadcasters because the official broadcast, they just have like entertainers as broadcasters, which that's all it is. It's entertainment, but it's not very insightful. And then what you do is then you create a second tab, and that is just the stream of a pro, whether it's like a current pro or previous pro, and you have their volume on. And then there's like this timing aspect where you connect the in-game time of the official broadcast with this professional streamer's broadcast, and then basically you're watching the broadcast with the professional commentating. And so it just creates, like, in my opinion, a much better viewer experience. And so this app CoStream is just like making that a nicer interface. But the reason I want real time is to now give the streamers the ability to like draw on the screen so all of the viewers can see it, or rewind and pause the video for everyone who's viewing. And so yeah, so if you're on like CoStream, so let me know if you have any questions about that or need clarification.
So sort of like the John Madden Telestrator, right, where you can be over there drawing on the TV
right.
And check this guy, he's got the awesome hair over there. No, I'm just kidding.
No, it's exactly that, but with anyone can tap into that.
So if you're a streamer, and so this would be like you're a streamer and you're watching a stream of somebody playing League of Legends, and there's an announcer, and you want to be able to switch back between the announcer stream and the person you're watching stream. Is that what I'm hearing?
Right. And so yeah, exactly. So you basically mute or lower the volume of the official stream and just listen to the main streamer.
This happened the other day. So I like to watch Twitch, and I don't have enough time to play games anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
because I got 2 kids running around, I got traveling and everything.
Yep.
But I do like watching other people play games, especially competitive games. Like I watch a little bit of League of Legends. My kids like Fortnite, so sometimes I watch Fortnite and see
Nice.
the Fortnite guys play, and I watch these like professional streamers that are professionals that are in like grand finals, and I do see sometimes where I'll watch one of my favorite streamers, uh, and they'll be watching another stream on their stream. So they'll do reaction content to that stream. I guess it's kind
Mm-hmm.
of hard to describe, but sometimes they'll go back to the official announcement because like Fortnite has like these official announcers, but then they'll go to that then the person there one of the people in this big tournament will also be streaming. So then they'll switch to that person's stream and watch them for like 10 minutes and then they'll switch back to the official stream. And it's always kind of maybe a little bit of an awkward transition. So yeah, maybe having something to like combine those two, or yeah, I could see there's some use definitely from some of these larger streamers that
Yeah.
do things like this.
Yeah. For there is, and that's kind of where I hit this like limitation
Mm.
was I was starting to get like literally like tens of thousands of users, and so when I like soft launched this feature and just had one streamer. I don't know if you know Double Lift, but he's a very popular League of Legends streamer
Mm.
and pro. And so he like reached out and he's like, hey, I want to use this feature. And so I turned it on for him and I just like immediately started running into errors. And so I talked to the Supabase guys and they're like, oh yeah, like we don't sorry, we don't support that. Because most most real-time systems are just like chat rooms or like chat support, just a one-on-one type of environment. It's rare when you need like a 1 to 20,000. And so I understand why they don't support that. Um,
Mm. Yeah, that's
So what
pretty
does that mean
cool.
for your app then? That you got to switch out Supabase for something else?
yeah, exactly. That's what I've been working on slowly but surely. Originally, I was just like, well, I guess I'm just not going to do this feature. Um, but then it's just like intellectually enjoyable. Like it's just
Mm.
a fun thing to build, I guess, and explore.
What's the website for it? What's the plug for it? Do you have
The
like a
for the
website?
Yeah, I mean it's very crude. CoStream.app. So it's very niche, and so you're not really going to see much on the landing page because what happens is the streamers build out their own URL and then they share it on their stream.
Oh.
So it's just kind of like basically here build your stream, and then it'll kind of generate what you need, and then they'll share it for their particular like thing that they're co-streaming.
So they're
Basically.
streaming from Twitch also?
Yep, Twitch, and eventually I want to do YouTube and like I think Korea uses Africa TV. Um, yeah, exactly. So you're viewing two streams, hopefully someday more than two, if you because some of the co-streamers do it together, and so if you could watch like both of their faces or yeah.
So
things
this
of
is
that
sort of
nature.
like the Manning cast on ESPN, right? For Monday Night Football, where you got the game going on and then somebody else over talking sort of over the top of your
Yeah,
main
I mean,
broadcast.
I imagine with like NFL, imagine if you're watching the Super Bowl and instead of hearing the broadcasters, you're like tuned into Tom Brady sitting on his couch
Mm-hmm.
and he's just like talking about, or you have multiple players talking and you have like the the quarterback's perspective or the kicker's perspective, whatever you want, and you can kind of tap into these viewpoints
Yeah, that's
as
sort
you
of
go.
what ESPN and other people are trying to do. Because if you watch any big game, you'll see, 4 or 5 different channels of here's a group of coaches sitting around talking about the
Yep,
game, and here's
yep,
a couple other people, and then here's the main
Mm.
broadcast and stuff. So
and
what
yeah,
you're basically trying to do, if I'm understanding you correctly, then is instead of having predefined channels of this and this and this, the
mhm,
user can sort of pick and choose. Okay, I want to listen to this guy and I want to listen to this guy, all while looking at the same main
right,
broadcast.
right, because you can't host your own. Like I can't show the main broadcast on my site, and like users can't stream their main broadcast, and so it's kind of like this area where I can watch the main broadcast. I just can't watch it with your face on it. And so we've just kind of like mutually agreed that we're going to watch the broadcast at the same time. and I'm watching the official broadcast just with your voice.
Mm. It's
Yeah.
very interesting. I like this whole like streaming space in general, like just kind
Hmm.
of fascinates me. I've been getting more and more into it because I'm being a developer advocate. I'm trying to get content out everywhere
Yeah.
from like YouTube and streaming. And I the other day I tried streaming on Twitter, now X, I guess, which was actually a lot easier than I thought. I just had to like I'm using StreamYard, and so I just had to like put in a key. I'm like,
Hmm.
I wonder if I want to like start streaming on Twitter. I don't have like a huge audience on Twitter, by the way, if you guys want to follow me, Eric CH, but I don't have a huge following. But I was thinking like, well, this is kind of interesting thing. And there's always like you listen to these streamers too, and everybody has like hacked setups. Some people are using OBS, like this broadcast software, and then they have a bunch of plugins that they use to like make their screen perfect and use these overlays to like make it look like it's a game system. And then they have their chat playing on the right hand side. And these are all just like plugins. It's very, if you're a developer and you want to have fun online, start getting into the OBS because there's so many like even if you don't like live streaming, there's so many like plugins and ways to do video, and you can really have this very unique setup. I watch a couple of streamers, software developers who stream. Primogen is one of them.
Yeah.
Uh, man, that guy's blown up in the last few years. If you
Yep.
don't know, he does like this. He's a big Rust guy and Vim guy, and he's really funny, entertaining on camera. And he does a Twitch stream, I think almost every other day now. I think he's does a lot of them, but he has some crazy setup where he has things are like alerts are popping up on the screen and then disappearing, and then he'll watch a YouTube video, and he'll react to it. It's definitely interesting. If you're like a good developer and you're good on camera, there's like a lot of possibilities of things you can do, especially if you like start deep diving into all the plugins and things like that. If you don't like any of that, then there's other software like StreamYard that makes it much easier to just press a few buttons and you're live, but you don't you can't like do as much of those custom things.
Yeah. No, it's honestly it's fascinating to watch like Primogen and Theo. Some of these more in trash, I guess they're just like a very like while they're technical, they're incredibly entertaining too. Like they've somehow fused memes and programming.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit of too like it's more entertaining a lot of times, especially when you watch some of these guys
Mm-hmm.
that rather than learning. So you kind of have to take it like, and it has a little bit of like commentary that some people may like, some people don't like some very strong opinions on things.
Yeah.
But if you like that type of programming, it's a great way to go. I like to watch it sometimes just to see like what's the hot topics that people are talking about and chatting about. Yeah, and there's three or four of these big streamers that just kind of rised up in the last few years. Melky is one of them too.
Mm-hmm.
He actually works at Twitch, which is their parent company's is Amazon.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's I was actually just listening to a West Boss
Mm,
podcast yesterday. He does an interview with indie hackers,
mm.
and so they kind of just explored the business side of his course creation. And one of the things is that kind of stuck with me is he is very reactionary, and so Wes doesn't feel the need to kind of pave the way for like future technology. He just kind of sees what's hot and builds courses around it, writes blogs, explores. And so I've noticed that, especially on Twitter, lately, a lot of people are talking about HTMX, which I think is kind of like a Python in the browser. I haven't explored it too much, um, but it's interesting to see. You see it on Twitter very often, just like, oh, what's hot this week? And it's just like, oh, Rust, Go, HTMX. What's next? Um, and so I can see there is a never ending stream of like content creation opportunities there.
It's
Yeah.
yeah, there's a couple of different there's the content creators that kind of do teaching like education content like I do, and then
Yep.
there's the content creators that kind of go for this more uh reactionary type feel to it, more maybe sometimes entertainment, sometimes some hot takes. and you kind of get that type, and those are fun to watch too. And so yeah, you get a whole bunch, but it is kind of to not to bring this down, but it is a little exhausting to like kind of go through the newest trend every week. I don't know if our listeners can relate. So like if you start going into Twitter, I'm just gonna call it Twitter, not X, but
Yeah.
everybody knows what I'm talking about. If you go through Twitter, like every week you're seeing like a new trend pop up of something crazy happening in the ecosystem, like HTMX, or maybe Supabase comes trending, or some of these other technology. Next 13 with the app router seems like it's been pretty trendy to talk about, and people's either likes or dislikes of it. AI, of course, has been big since the beginning of the year, and all the
Hmm.
different tech. Now that's gone. AI is beginning so big, like there's influence or tech Twitter people that's all they talk about right now. And so if you follow them, you can hear that. But it does get a little exhausting because it feels like things are just changing so fast and opinions are changing and everybody has an opinion. And then some guy will come in with some hot take that's like almost borderline, like it could probably maybe offensive to some people, and then you get like these geek wars, like one side doesn't like the other, and yeah, it's a little exhausting. I've been definitely trying to on Twitter to mute people, and not that I don't like them. It's just like I don't want to hear some of these topics, and just kind of coordinate my and threads too. If you moved over to threads, you can do the same thing. Just to kind of get the people not an echo chamber, but like diverse ideas, but people that aren't kind of being on that side of crazy content.
Yeah. 100%. That's is like kind of something I experienced within the last year or two is uh like the transition between Nux 2 and Nux 3 was kind of difficult for me. Just this idea of like, oh, I've like gotten very comfortable with Nux 2, but Nux 3 just broke everything, at least in my mind. So now is a perfect time to learn Next and React. That's where all the jobs are. Let's go explore that. Excuse me. But the more I like learn Next, I just realized it's just solving the exact same problem. And so I wasn't trying to learn and create. I was just trying to solve the same problem a second time or a third time. And that I realized was exhausting. And so that was kind of when I just doubled down on Nux and learned Nux 3. And I was like, oh, wow, this is beautiful. I really enjoy Nux 3 now. But I experienced that even at work. I work at an agency, so we hop between projects pretty often. And so, one project's we're doing database queries in Postgres, and then the next project we're using some sort of ORM, and then the next project it's a different ORM, and it's like, man, we're solving the exact same problem, but I have to just like learn the syntax
Yeah.
over and over again, and that's probably the most exhausting part. I think is like we're not I'm not spending my time solving problems. I'm spending my time learning how to solve the problem a different way. Not necessarily better, just different.
Mm, yeah, for sure. Yeah, once you learn one language, programming language framework, it's easy to move to another. I just did a video on this recently about you mentioned about where all the jobs are at. I've seen this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if this is a new trend that's been popping up or just I've been noticing more lately. It's like X technology, there's no jobs in X technology. Like there was a big Twitter thread like Flutter, there's no jobs for Flutter. And some guys like, I've been looking. And then you see every now you can see Vue.js, there's nobody hiring for Vue.js developers. And everybody's going to React. And I just feel like this theme comes up over and over again. And I always say like there's Flutter jobs out there. There's Angular 2 jobs. There's Vue 3 jobs and Vue 2 jobs. It's just it's really dependent on where you're at, what location you're at, how far you're looking to go, either locally if you're looking for remote.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely jobs out there, and maybe some places, and there definitely more React jobs out there. That's true. But we all agree with that. But you can find your own niche out there. You can find if you look hard, you can find these other jobs. And if you are a Vue developer, it's so easy to transfer that knowledge over to React to get a React job, even if you haven't had a ton of React experience. If you know how to create good architected Vue apps, understand how component design works, you can learn hooks and you can learn a lot of these other things and jump into those other languages and
Yeah.
frameworks.
Yeah. No, I think that's the key really, is just learn and explore in the environment you're most familiar with and enjoy the most. And I do think it's much more valuable to get like a deep understanding of something like Vue or Nuxt than like a very shallow view of both Vue, Nuxt, Next, and React, right? Because
Mm.
it once you get into these deeper areas of these frameworks, it's super easy to transition them. It's just that syntax change. It's like, oh, this is how do I solve this problem, but in this language, and that's a ChatGPT will hold your hand the
Mhm.
whole way for that one.
Oh yeah, definitely use that.
Yep.
One thing I did too when I started doing a lot more React work at AWS is I had amazing code reviewers that knew React,
Mm-hmm.
since 2014 or whatever, and they knew it inside and out, and they had really great in-depth code reviews. So as someone that primarily worked on Vue and Angular before I worked at AWS, I joined AWS about 3 years ago. That it was great having those reviewers come on and be like, "Hey, by the way, there's a better way to do this," and giving me some feedback. One thing I always like naming, like different types of naming conventions, is always hard in software development. Having really great reviewers helped on that, as long as you're in a good team. So
Nice.
even if you are able to move over one language to the other, just having good code reviews is great.
Yeah, just as a reminder, remember the the two hardest things in computer programming are cache and validation, naming things, and off by one errors.
Yeah, classic joke. Sorry,
Yep.
we're kind of like straying away from your app, Cody, but I thought
Oh, no.
conversation.
This isn't. We're not here to talk about my app. It's all good.
That was just sort of the launch pad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, just
Yeah.
out of curiosity, Cody, since we are Vue, we'll throw this in a little bit. What on your co-share app is what's your front end? What's the stuff that you see? Is that coming from
It's
Elixir as
Nuxt.
well?
This
Oh, it's
Nuxt.
Next. Okay,
Yep.
so Vue
Yep.
Next.
Nuxt 3. So I kind of built this as a way to learn Nuxt 3. And so it's using Nuxt 3, and the whole thing is in the composition API, TypeScript, script setup. It was more of like an exploration, and then it just kind of got popular, and so now I'm just like, oh, no, now the front end's kind of set. Like there's not really much more to do in the front end outside of just like maybe educational content of like, here's how you use it. But I mean, the majority of people that I kind of like advertised it to, um, they know how to use it. But I'm sure there's always more you can do there.
Did
But
you
yeah,
use? Oh, sorry to interrupt. Did you use server island components?
no, this was no, I didn't. But we did just talk to Daniel last week, and I'm 100% gonna look at that moving forward, because this site's mainly static. There's not much. I think it would be a good use case for it.
I did a video on it. Speaking, I don't want to keep saying I did videos on it, but I did a video on it, and I had some lot of little issues with it.
Mm-hmm.
And the video did really well. It has like, I don't know, 10, 15,000 views, so a lot of people are interested in it. But I had like a lot of little issues. I wish I need to talk to Daniel and figure out what I was doing wrong in a couple of those places. Feels like it's a little it's great, but I think it's still very beta. I think it needs some work compared to what I've seen on like React server components. I think are farther. Next server components are farther along.
Yep. Yeah, and it was really interesting to talk to Daniel about it, because he cleared up a lot of like why you when and why you should use it. Because that's kind of the perspective I'm getting from like Twitter and the React side, is like, oh, you can always use it. Um, but that from Daniel's perspective, that's definitely not the case. There's very much like a clear use case for these tools, and it's not just everything. Um,
Mm.
and so that's I do find that interesting, and I'm curious how much of it has to do with like Next and like Vercel's relationship. But now we're just getting into the weeds there. But I see. Is this your a look at server components and server actions video?
Yeah. Hmm.
Cool. I'll definitely check that out. That sounds awesome. Because that is like the next frontier. I actually just applied for a talk to VueConf Toronto about Nuxt server components. So hopefully that gets accepted. But I would love to dive deeper into that.
Yeah, I submitted a CFP to Toronto too. We'll see. Maybe I'll see you there. We'll see.
Oh, that'd be wonderful. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would love
I've
that.
never been to Toronto. I was at VueConf earlier this year. I try to make VueConf every year. Every year I'm like, Steve, are you gonna be at VueConf? And every year he says no. One day he will come, I think.
I will.
Right?
I promise. I will be there. I will be there at some
It's
point.
yeah.
But yeah, I made it. It was super fun. But I've never been to the Toronto one. Yeah, I wanna see what that's all about. I got my passport ready. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, that's actually the only Vue conference I've been to is VueConf Toronto in 2019. So right before COVID started happening, and at the time I was a very new Vue dev, maybe like 1-ish years of experience, maybe a little more than 1 year, and most of the talks went over my head at the time, but I'm still like reflecting on that conference to this day and applying a lot of the techniques or rewatching the talks or using the tools that were mentioned 4 years ago. And it's just very valuable, and it's interesting to just be exposed to these ideas, and it's like, oh, that's how you could do this. Yeah,
Yeah.
highly
So what
recommend
year
it.
did you go?
I want to say it was 2019
Okay.
in Toronto. Yeah, it was.
Does your work like give you, I know some jobs give you like one or two conference tickets where they'll pay for the conference and they'll either pay for your travel or pay for some of your travel. Does your
Mhm.
work allow you to do some of that, or they only allow you to do if you're speaking there?
That's a good question.
If you can't talk
They're
about it, it's okay.
Oh, no, I'm happy to talk about it. um, so yes and no. They kind of make me jump through hoops. I like, it's like, hey, if you ever want to go to a conference, we'll pay for it if you're talking. It's like, okay, great. So I just got a talk accepted. I'm going to be going to Spain next month to talk about
Wow. That's
actually
awesome.
iOS stuff. And then so it's like I reach out and it's like, oh, because it's not in North America, we can't pay for it. And it's like, oh
Mm.
man, okay, well, so I'm paying for that one. I'm paying for the plane ticket out of pocket, but the conference is covering the rest, which is really nice. And then so we'll see what happens with Toronto if I get accepted. Is that
I've
close
talked to
enough?
I've talked to so many people, like as I've been traveling around to more conferences that are in the same space for you. Where I talked to one guy, I don't know if I should say his name, but amazing developer, but
Hmm.
he pays his way for every conference he goes to. A lot of conferences he applies to are smaller and they can't pay for the travel, but a lot of times they'll pay just for the ticket or maybe they'll give him lodging. But he's paid
Hmm.
out of pocket for like all these conferences he goes to. And it's like a commitment. Like he has to take time off for work. Sometimes his work will give him time off, sometimes they won't. But I'm always like, man, I don't know if I could do that if my work wasn't on board or had make me pay for part like these big trips by myself. I mean, Europe, or where do you say Argentina? Where was that again?
Spain,
Spain.
Yep, Europe.
Spain, I get. That'd be amazing. Probably pay myself to
Yeah,
travel
wife's
to
coming
there.
along. We're gonna make a trip out of it.
Oh, so
So
that's even better. Yeah.
yeah.
But if it was like normal trips going from the West Coast to East Coast to West Coast, and paying that out of pocket, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I just read of somebody who recently put something on Twitter saying something along the same lines. It's like, I originally just wanted to do like 3 conferences a year, but this year I'm doing 9, and all of it's out of pocket, and like, but hey, if anyone needs a dev advocate, like I'm looking for a job. Was kind of the gist of it, and
Maybe he's getting some NIL money, name, image, likeness money, like college sports. Maybe that's how he's able to do it.
yeah, and I mean, there's definitely a lot of value in getting your face out there, and if that's kind of your goal, or the kind of the whole personal brand thing. But you really have to capitalize on that, I think, and like that's a lot of money going to 9
Yeah.
conferences out of pocket.
Oh,
It's a
geez.
lot of money and time. So
That
I'm
yeah, that
fortunate.
this
Go ahead.
go
Sorry.
ahead. Sorry, with in delay in this. I was gonna say that the developer we're talking about, he posted it publicly. It's JD Hillen. He's
Yep.
amazing. developer guy, and he also has he was at VueConf. He did a talk there. So anybody's looking, I think he mentioned he'd love to do developer advocacy. But yeah, he spent a lot of money out of pocket to travel to a lot of conferences.
Yeah, so I'm actually curious. You are a developer advocate, and I'm curious. Is that part of your job description? Like, is the expectation that you go to conferences? And I imagine they pay for all of that as well.
Yeah. I'm lucky enough to be at a company where the developer advocates kind of get to choose what they want to do. So
Nice.
some developer advocates they just love creating content. So they'll create lots of blog posts and lots of videos. Some developer advocates really like the testing part and like giving feedback back to product. So they might be doing that. And then some other developer advocates like travel. So I like travel, so I don't like to do it, every week, but every occasionally, once every month or two, every few months. So that's the way I like to go and to travel around and talk to developers and do talking meetups and usually my qualifications to going to a conference is we have to be sponsoring the conference or I have a speaking spot are usually
Hmm.
the two things that I have to one or the other to be able for me to go to a conference. The kind of the days of me just going to a conference for fun is not happening anymore, just because like it's kind of my job to go to conferences because it's what I choose, what I like to do. So, but if I'm speaking at one or we're sponsoring it, then I'll go to it. That's kind of how it works. And a lot of developer companies they they have budgets, so they have a budget of how many times or they have a developer advocacy group in their org and they have a budget of how many places they go to and they have rubrics and they create spreadsheets of like how many people are going to be at the conference versus how many people they're going to reach. AWS, at least in my department, isn't as specific as that, so we kind of make judgment calls when we get invited to conferences or we get accepted, our CFPs get accepted. It's a
Nice.
fun job if you like personal branding, you like doing podcasts like this, you like talking to other developers. It's not a bad gig. Some people do get confused. Some people think developer advocates are marketing, but not really marketing. Some people think developer advocates are uh, don't have technical skills. Like, and 99% of developer advocates I've worked with, you had a career in software development before they moved to developer advocacy. There are some like right out of college or some newer developers who just moved into developer advocacy right away. But I think most of us have had several years software development experience before we moved over. But it's a fun job. I like it.
Oh, I mean, it
I
sounds
could talk about
perfect.
it all. I could talk about it for another hour if we want to, but of course we're about 50 minutes in. So
Yeah, yeah. Maybe for another show, or I'll DM you with more questions because
yeah,
I am curious about the developer advocate lifestyle. That sounds fun.
It's the jet setting lifestyle that everybody wants.
I've talked to engineers though that say I tell them like I go to conferences, I make content, I talk to people, I go to podcasts, and they're like, I would hate that. I would not want to ever do anything like that. Put me in front of a cubicle, let me just sit there and put me in front of my computer and solve interesting problems. And you're right. Like it's not for everyone. It's definitely a different kind of mindset and skill shift and I like to keep, and it's also, yeah, just different parts of skills to do it. I try to keep up with my programming skills by always being a part of the community, creating cool demos. I also work for a company that has a lot of open source projects where I can still push code if I want to. So that helps me like keep my skills up
Yeah,
in
that's
this
my
job.
thing. I mean, I like I've spoken at conferences a few times and it's fun to do. When it comes to training or conference speaking or stuff like that, whether it's here or the fire service or any other place where I spend time, for me, it's more of a, hey, I learned something cool. I want to share it as compared to just being a speaker and I got to find something to talk about, if you know what I mean. So I'll go speak or train when I have something that I've learned that I think would be beneficial for other people. But just to be constantly speaking because you have to speak, that's a different story. And then, Eric, to your point about keeping your skills up, I know the draw for me a lot of times is, I'll see something, an app that could be used to fill a need. And my first thought is, okay, how would I start to do that? I write it with this, and I could use this and this, and and then I want to sit down and write it. That's my main thing as compared to, hey, I want to talk about somebody else writing. I want to be the one doing the writing.
Yeah,
So for me, an ideal job, I think, would be maybe like a 50-50, where I can code half the time and then be out speaking or coordinating with people half the time.
I've heard of some DAs that do that have like hybrid roles, that they're still like software engineers day to day, but they've gotten some sort of permission from their management where they can sort of be like a part-time developer advocate, and so they can go out and do the conferences and get those paid for and not have to worry about paying all their way because they're promoting the company. So that might be the best of like both worlds if you really want to do it. Although, I could see that being a little stressful because now you're still having your own deadlines and sprint tasks that you need to do, but now you have to worry about creating a conference talk and working on your public speaking skills and submitting CFPs. Like they're kind of two completely different types of jobs. I was worried about that too when I moved over to being a DA. It's like, can I still keep up, with my tech skills and everything? And so far I'm doing okay. I also really nice is at least at AWS we have a pretty high bar. So like when I create demos and things like that, I have a whole lot of smart engineers I can send the code to and like, hey, can you guys give me some feedback, give me a code review? And that helps me like make sure that I keep the code at high and I can still keep learning.
Something I'm curious about is how do you continue, like, the majority of your YouTube channel, I think, is mostly like JavaScript related content.
Mhm.
And like, what if you all of a sudden did get interested in Elixir or Python or something outside of the scope that you traditionally have worked in? And would you share that, or do you try to stay within the bounds of what you've always done?
Yeah, so well, my YouTube channel, so we have ways of creating content. So we have a lot of different channels we can push stuff to. Some channels are like dev.to or uh, Hashnode or Medium or these other platforms or even LinkedIn. You can write whole blog posts on there. So we have a lot of
Hmm.
ideas of where we want content to go, and one of the content places we can go is like our own personal YouTube channels. And it doesn't have to be like it. We can post on our own personal YouTube channels, but we can also post on the AWS blogs that are out there too, or internal blogs. So if I wanted to like completely change like my personal website or my Twitter account or my YouTube channel, that's fine. I can change it to whatever and put whatever content I want out there. That may not be the right place to put some content out for my developer advocacy job. It might be better to put it on some internal blogs or places. So it's really up to me. But I still have the freedom to do whatever I want on my own personal channels, within reason, obviously.
Sure. Yeah, definitely.
So what is your main goal as a DevRel? That's one thing I've been trying to get. So you're obviously working for a company, so I would imagine that your main goal is to promote the company and the company's products, right? While at the same time, and doing that by one, talking about them and how amazing they are, but two, making it easier for developers to integrate your products into their applications or their projects. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I kind of like to think about it, DevRel in general, is you're not just promoting products, but you're getting awareness out there. You're trying to bring awareness to a product, and that's like one of the number one things that we try to do as DevRels is to bring awareness, and that could be in the form of creating content. It could be creating content on our own sites, external sites. It could be promoting different products that we have a new product launch comes out. Could be writing content for that. It could be just talking to users and see how maybe they never heard of it, just explaining what it does at a conference, at a booth. Or it could be, it's a lot of different things. It's not a new job title, but it's newish. Like I think only in the last 3 or 4 years has it gotten really popular, probably due to the pandemic. So many companies went virtual, and a lot of companies like, oh, well, we need a developer advocate now. And so developer evangelism. So a bunch of companies bought into it during the pandemic, and now we're like starting to answer more of these questions, like how do you take a developer advocate? How do you find the return on investment on their time? Like if I fly across the country and talk to 30 people at a meetup, and was it worth it? How do we take that 30 people I talked to, or maybe I talked to 50 people? I'm just making this up. How do we measure the return on investment on you talking to 50 people, and that costs, $3,000 to travel and food and lodging and all that? So these are like good questions, and there's like no really easy answer to all of them. It's a lot of like um, trying to figure out, like, did you bring awareness? Um, it's sometimes too, like, you might talk to 50 people and they'll talk to 10 other people, and you have this kind of network effect where eventually your
Mhm.
your message will get out to a lot of people. Yeah, these are good questions, but that's a long answer to what you're asking, Steve. But awareness maybe is a shorter one.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's what I would anticipate. If I'm a business owner and I'm going to pay somebody to do some work for me, it's basic, business 101. I need to make sure that the money I'm spending is generating a return, or otherwise you're just throwing it to the wind,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and I'd say, yeah, that is important consideration. I think the wrong way to do DevRel is like take every single piece of content you put out there, and then obviously you want to see views, that's important, but then like adding tracking links and
Hmm.
click-through rates, and be like, okay, you put this content out on January 3rd on X, and we see you had 300 views, but only 10 people clicked the link, so maybe it wasn't worth it. And I think you could do some sort of tracking, but I think it can get to the place where it it doesn't make much sense.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, yeah, it's a very challenging problem to quantify, and
Mhm.
may even be impossible.
Yeah.
I've definitely been exposed to conference talks either in person or through YouTube that did eventually lead to these companies whose developer advocates gave the talks. The company I was working for paid for their product in some one way or another. Um, and there's no way they know that. They just
Yeah.
got some money a couple years later, and because so and so gave a talk. Um, and I'm curious if a company like Amazon, one of these bigger companies, has created a system, or is it just kind of trust based? Like, it's a lot of the software day to day work feels like hard to quantify, but clearly it's working.
Yeah, definitely working. They have lots of different spreadsheets. I don't know all the different like ways that they're quantifying it. I probably couldn't talk to that, but it is a hard problem. But I think, it's an evolving industry and all, and we're just getting better at trying to figure out how it works, and what DevRels, how do they spend their most time? How do they get the most um,
Yeah.
uh, time for it? I guess profit for it, or it works out the best for their time that they put out there. I'm having
Yeah.
like word salad here, but I think you understand what I'm saying.
Oh yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Yeah.
All right. Well, we're hitting about an hour here, so we'll wrap up this part of the conversation. Nice thing about having multiple co-hosts is we can fill an hour a lot easier than me by myself.
For
When the
those of you
guest
still
comes.
listening, thank you for listening to our rants and raves about advocacy and Twitch streaming.
Oh yeah, these are things I hear discussed in other places as well, so I know they are a topic of interest for sure.
Mhm.
For sure. So with that, we'll move to picks. Picks part of the show where we get to talk about anything else we want to talk about, whether we want to toot our own horn, aka shameless plugs, or a book or a movie or a game or you name it. So I guess we'll start with Cody. What do you got first for picks, Cody?
Oh man, I was afraid you'd pick me first.
Uh-oh. All right, I'll give you a breath and I'll do the dad jokes or chance to catch your breath, and I'll do the
Okay.
dad jokes of the week. How about that? So as I find my media here. So, it's there's a lot of conversation about how things that used to be made in America aren't made in America anymore, and made in China or whatever. And I think that's a real shame. Like the other day, I went and bought a TV, and it said built-in antenna. I was like, where's antenna? And then the quote of the day. This is a very short quote of the day, but it's important to know who made it. So the quote is, good enough. And it's made by a guy named Mediocrities. And then question for the day. I might have used this one last week, so apologies if I did. They all run together after thousands of dad jokes. What do you call soft tissue between a shark's teeth? A slow swimmer.
Nice.
Right? You don't always have to be the fastest. You just have one person slower than you.
Mhm.
All right, Cody, you had some time. What do you got for a pick for us?
Yeah, I got some time. I figured it out. So I got my wife a DJ mixer for her birthday recently, and she actually just posted a YouTube video called Hawaii House Mix by Danny Bonteque, and it's been so cool watching her DJ around the house. Like, basically, I'll be working here coding, and she just has a table set up, and she's just kind of mixing and doing her thing, taking courses, and so it's very, very, very fun, and I'm very proud of her.
Is this on YouTube?
Yes, it's on YouTube. It's just, I don't know if it comes up. Hawaii House Mix by Danny. Oh, there's a lot, but Danny Bonteque.
D-A-N-I or D-A-N-N-Y or
D-A-N-Y B-O-N-T-E-C-O-U.
All right.
So that's probably what I'll be listening to after this as I get into some code, and recommend you do the same.
So now I'm not much of a DJ myself, but what was it you talked? You got a mixing station? What'd you call
just
it?
like one of those mixer things. To
me, when I think of a mixer, I think of a mixer with two blades where you're mixing up your whipping cream or something like that.
So this is kind of, how it kind of has like the vinyl, like as if there's the vinyl things that you're kind of like
that's what
mixing
I thought,
around, and the buttons and knobs that you're tweaking and everything. And so I guess that's really important. It's hard to do that live digitally, and so they actually kind of DJs carry around this kind of controller to where they play. And day 2, we actually went to a friend's house this weekend and barbecued, and sure enough, my wife brings out the mixer and she's DJing, and all the friends got involved, and it was so fun. Yeah, so
I'm old enough to remember when the mixing station was a literal vinyl record and you're scratching it with the needle on a record player. So
right, and now we just simulate that. But
right,
it sounds similar, I think.
Cool. Yeah, I'm noticing she's got a video here of your road trip through Washington and Oregon. I gotta watch that.
Yeah. She's been doing some YouTube videos. She's trying to do one a week, just as kind of like a side gig to hopefully someday get a remote job so we can travel around and be remote digital nomads. But it's fun. It's a good thing to do, and honestly, I love it. I love her carrying a camera around and just kind of documenting her life, because it's easy to forget some of these things. So having a video is wonderful.
Oh, this house mix is like 26 minutes long.
Yeah, it's a proper mix, like a proper. Yeah, this is cool. Kind of a thing, Steve. There's like people like kind of travel the world and make these like very aesthetic electronic music like mixes. And so that's our lanai. That's right outside actually where we're recording this. That's my view. If you see what she's looking at.
Wow. Didn't you guys get sort of torched by the fires, or am I I thought lanai sort of got burned up.
Sorry, lanai as in our porch.
Gotcha. Oh, okay, I was thinking lanai on Maui.
Maui got burnt. Yeah. Yep.
You're on which island are you on?
I'm on the Big Island.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. We had fires, but much smaller, much less destructive. Yeah.
Gotcha. All righty. So yeah, Danny Bonteque, Hawaii House Mix. It's out there.
Yeah.
So, all right, Eric, what do you got for us for picks?
I've been watching TV in the evenings. I'm watching 2 shows. One is Strange New Worlds. It's the new Star Trek show. Any Star Trekkies
that's right.
there?
Yeah. My wife's Trekkie, so she's into that probably.
Yeah, excellent. Um, I think it's probably one of the best of the new Star Trek shows. Like I watched a few of the others and I thought they were just okay, but this Strange New Worlds is really interesting. They're on season 2 now, and they just did a musical last week. So if any of you guys are old school Buffy the Vampire Slayers, they had a Buffy
Sarah Michelle
episode where,
Gellar, yeah.
yeah, they did a musical number in that show. They did Flash did a musical number too, and so did Strange New Worlds. They did a musical number, which was really interesting. Actually, it was really fun. It's kind of a cool episode. So I enjoyed that, and then been watching Apple TV and one called Silo on Apple TV. It's like kind of a sci-fi futuristic one where all these people are living in the silo and it looks like they can't go outside and there's murders happening, and that just wrapped up recently.
Oh.
But with this writer strike, I don't know what's going to happen in this actor strike if we're going to get any TV shows for a while. So I might have to be watching some reruns of things coming this fall.
Well, what's interesting is that strike isn't as hardcore as it sounds, and what I mean by that is that there are a number of shows that have been granted exemptions where they can continue acting and writing and so on. There's quite a list of them, actually. I think the one I was reading about was The Chosen, which is a real popular series based on the life of Jesus. And I think they got an exemption. I've heard there's a number of other exemptions too. So it's not like hard and fast. Everything is shut down. But at the same time, I'm sure those exemptions are, a drop in the bucket compared to the normal amount of work that's being put out.
Maybe we'll go back to like in the 2000s, like when everything was reality TV. Maybe we'll just get like tons of more reality TV coming out soon.
Please no. Please no. So actually, and before we go, Eric, you reminded me of a pick I have. So Netflix has a show coming out, and it's not till September 8th, called Spy Ops. And it's 7 episodes, if I remember correctly. And it's all these famous missions, things by various spy agencies throughout the world. So it's not like just the U.S. CIA. There's like MI6 and Mossad and some other different agencies. It looks really awesome. I think the one from the U.S. that I've seen based on the trailer that's out there is The Hunt for Osama bin Laden in Tora Bora in Afghanistan back in probably like 2004, 2005, I think. It looks really fascinating. Well, I went to look for it, and it's not out yet. Again, it's not out till the first episode is not till September 8th, which is about 3 weeks as of right now. But I did come across another one, and it's called The Spy. And it's about a true story about a spy named Eli Cohen who spied for Israel against Syria from like 1961 to 1965. And there's 6 episodes, and I'm about halfway through it. And it's really a fascinating story. And if you read the Wikipedia page on him, on Eli Cohen, Eli, like Eli is how you spell his first name, he really did some amazing stuff. But what's fascinating about it is who the actor is. Now, most of us think of Sacha Baron Cohen as, like Borat or the Ollie G Show or some of the, the offbeat comedy stuff he would do, number. But he's the main actor in this one as Eli Cohen. And he's really good. I mean, he's really good. The story is just, it's really gut-wrenching from a personal point of view, and how, as a spy, he's having to hide everything from his family and his wife and everything that's going on. In the end, they sort of shadow it in the beginning, but if you read about it, you learn that he was captured by the Syrians and hung publicly in Damascus, I believe, which is where he was operating. But one, it's just a good story all the way around. It's based in reality. And 2, the actor, it's interesting when you see someone who's known for comedy and totally goofball stuff, being a very good serious actor as well. It's from 2021, I believe, is when it first came out, but it's just called The Spy on Netflix. Really, really good story.
I have to look that up. I know he was Sacha Baron Cohen. He was going to be in that Freddie Mercury biopic, Queen.
Right, the one that Adam Driver was instead.
Not Adam Driver.
No, not Adam Driver. It was Adam something.
It ended up, who was the lead on that?
He was a guy that had been on American Idol, and I forgot.
He won
The
an Oscar
Mr.
for it.
Robot guy.
Yeah, the Mr. Robot guy. Rami Malek.
Oh, wasn't it? I thought it was. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, I never saw the movie, so maybe that's why I don't remember. I
It's a
could have
great
sworn
movie.
it was him.
Another one, Mr. Robot. If you haven't seen that, that's a great pick. If you haven't seen it, if you're into software development and programming and weird things, it's great.
Yeah.
Cool. All righty. So with that, we will wrap this episode of Views on Up. Thank you to Eric for jumping on literally with 10 minutes notice today.
Yeah.
And
thanks,
for
Eric.
Cody, always good to have you. And we will talk at you next time on Views on View.